Hello, everyone, and welcome to Founder Problems. I'm Zach Oshinbanjo, Army vet turned construction project manager, and I'm joined by my co-host, Lee and Sarah.
I'm Lee Zuvanich, and I own a startup. I founded a nonprofit, and I'm running an agency that helps other founders be more organized than I am.
I'm Sarah Schumacher, and I run a website agency working primarily with small clients that need me to do things such as find out where a domain name is registered that has been untouched for 12 years.
That's so specific.
True story.
Yes.
I may have resolved it. I'm not sure yet.
This is why we love you.
We're rolling into season 2. A few months ago, we talked about how everyone should maybe not quit their day job, especially if they're going out on a limb testing a new idea. We also talked about different strategies and ideas to manage multiple opportunities at the same time. Sometimes that just doesn't work out. Sometimes you have to be able to let things go. After 4 years, as of July 1st, 2025, I am deciding to shut down my organization, Vitelligence, which was originally structured and based on the idea of helping military service members transition out of the military into the civilian workforce. I want to keep it top of mind that failure isn't some dirty word. Sometimes things don't go the way that you anticipate, and it allows you a little bit more bandwidth to do other things. So I open the floor. Anything off of that?
Everything you say means you have to say no to something else. As soon as you said that, that's what popped in my head.
Yeah.
It's sad, but it's also an opening for other things that you can get even more excited about.
Mm.
Yeah, that's something that I struggle with that I'm also learning. It's funny because I don't consider any of my businesses I've shut down to be failures at all. And that's probably because I didn't come up in the startup world. I was like throwing shit at the wall. My family members have started businesses that were incredibly practical, and I don't even know if anyone in my family knows what a VC is because they don't care to. My aunt started a daycare, my grandma had a typing business, and they just figured out a way to make money so they wouldn't make some money. And they never really thought of themselves as like capital E entrepreneurs, I don't think. So patterning myself after that, I would just toss together a business and then I'd shut it down when it didn't serve me and my family anymore. And in my mind, that's what a business is for. And that's what you're doing. You are experimenting, you're iterating, you're taking care of your family, and when it doesn't make sense anymore, you're moving on. And that's what a really smart business owner does. So it's a good skill to have.
When you say that, it's interesting because I feel like that's obvious. Yeah, that makes sense. Those of us living in Founderland all the time put these ideas on a pedestal somehow and make everything way more like the expectations are higher.
Totally.
Everything is more difficult and more monumental than it needs to be, which is really unhealthy, probably. I hadn't really thought of it that way till you said that. But yeah, I mean, what is a business for? It's so that you have control over your time and your energy and you benefit from the work you put in. You're not making money for someone who's making $1 bajillion a year for meetings, whatever CEOs do that are making these wild salaries while all the people in the office dealing with the actual work.
Yeah.
You can see the return on the work that you do, and then you benefit from that directly. And then you also have the ability to do things like fire clients when necessary.
Yeah.
So I think that that's how we should be looking at it. And why are we not looking at it that way?
I think a lot of the thought in trying to structure and organize something that can provide for yourself and allow you to allocate your own time, and I think a portion of that gets lost sometimes when you, I don't know, get so far into the business when you're just consumed by it. It's every waking moment you're taking calls, you're stepping away from pool parties, whatever it may be, and you no longer have excitement about what you're doing. You're burdened by the idea of, every Monday you're going to have a potentially difficult conversation with new clients. You got to go through onboarding. Somebody's going to call you a jerk. Somebody's going to tell you to take a hike and all these other things. So it's like, you, I think it gets lost. And one of the things I look back after whatever my time is I genuinely had difficulty trying to remember the last time I found it enjoyable and or I identified as someone who was attached to this organization. Like
Wow.
it's such a stretch. I think I was like, I remember back in December of 22, I was a bright-eyed founder
Oh
trying to do all
man.
these things, but everything since then has kind of sucked.
Yeah.
It's not been good for me. It's not been productive.
Can I say I was looking through my books the other day for ADVA for my agency, which has been the most profitable business I've ever run in my life. And I was looking through everything because I'm talking to some people who are interested in buying it again. I don't know if it'll go anywhere again. And getting it all together. And in my mind, I'm like, 2023 was really profitable. 2024 not so much. Like economic downturn for everyone, and like that's what I'm gonna see in my books. No, that downturn started in 2022, and it's been a blur since then. And I think it's been a blur since then
Mm.
for a lot of people. Things have been hard for a lot of people. Like people who should have gotten funding and landed clients and moved forward with great ideas weren't able to, and a lot of shit died in late 2022 and mid 2023. So I just want to say that like if that's exactly the timeline for you, I think it's very realistically tied to the economy and not some personal failing. And the fact that you were able to recognize it and figure out how to move on is something that I still don't know how to do quite yet when it comes to like investment money. That's a different ball game for me. I'm willing to torture myself a lot more than I ever was if there's investors on a cap table looking at me, waiting for me to make a move. Which is crazy because they don't want you to torture yourself. They want you to make moves, spend the money, iterate, right? Figure it out,
Yeah.
shut it down, move on, go get your next idea. Like that's what a founder does. So yeah, I think to me, you did everything right.
There's almost the same dynamic with, I think, founders and VCs potentially as there is as like an intern working for someone for the first time or a junior dev or something. Because the way that you just described that, there's this pressure hanging over their head as far as, oh no, like, am I going to do this right? I have some questions. I'm afraid to ask questions. And they just make it into a big deal. And
Mm-hmm.
the person running the business is like, dude, just ask me the question. It's fine. Just ask.
Ask
You're
for more
making me
money.
think that this is like, yeah, exactly. Then just do something. And then you ask questions. Because that's the attitude I have with less confident
Mm-hmm.
people that I've had working for me in the past. One of the things I love about one of my main devs right now is I love that you ask questions. Keep asking questions, ask all the questions. And it requires a level of courage to do that, to trust your own ability to even
Absolutely.
know it's the right question to ask, perhaps. I'm not sure what the dynamics are for that, but I think that really matters. And there's maybe a lot of that that happens with founders that are, in this place of feeling beholden to an investor and then aren't as free to do what they think they need to do. And it sounds like, based on what Zach just said, we need to have more of a Marie Kondo approach to businesses. This startup no longer sparks joy. I'm
Yeah.
going to toss it out like these old socks.
Being able to identify that early is such a challenge, and maybe from a societal perspective, maybe I'll just speak for me. It's a very strong driving force or factor to not look dumb. There's probably a more tactful way to say that, but I feel like asking questions almost implies ignorance. No one wants to be caught in this position where they seem like they don't know what's going on or they don't know what to do, because we have so much external pressure knowing what's going on and the right decisions, because everyone wants to be independent, everyone wants to be autonomous. But if I've never done XYZ, how should I go about that? Relating to someone and saying, I didn't know how to do it, can you show me? I think that in its own kind of creates a, I don't know, like a power imbalance. You're like, shoot, this person knows more than me. So I think that could lead to why some people find it so difficult to ask questions or speak up. Or like in my case, I think I was just driving and driving and driving and trying all these things to see what would work. And I kept getting to a point where I was just like, well, I can't and or shouldn't ask
Mm.
anybody about this, because it's just, then it's going to mean I don't know what I'm doing. So,
Oh
so,
yeah.
That makes perfect sense, actually. I think you hit the nail on the head.
I feel like I have some very different problems. I have an abundance of confidence most of the time. I over-engineer things mostly because I know in my gut if something will work. Like I feel very strongly. This is like an example of me being overly confident. I'm like, I don't know if I've ever been wrong. I've definitely been wrong,
wow.
but I can't think of a single time off the top of my head. Because when I think back to even my childhood, I love to sell. I'm good at selling. And the key to me to being great at sales and to really landing things is you can't just be ready for the next step, in my opinion. You have to be ready for the next 5 or 10 steps. You got to be way ahead of the buyer, right? So if they lean in one direction, you can be like, oh, I'm prepared for that. I've got the solution for that too. That hurts you. I have the pain reliever for that. And you better not be full of shit. I don't really like the approach of let's build a vaporware castle and promise a bunch of stuff we haven't built yet and build a landing page, and then if people sign up, then you go build it. I know that's the lean way to do it, and in today's economy and society, that's probably the smartest way to test an idea. But I hate that because I'm used to the old school entrepreneur, small business owner mindset of if they say they're ready to buy, I'm ready to take that dollar right now, and I'm ready to perform that service by tomorrow. And that's been a big strength of mine is I'm ready to go. And I haven't been ready to go with my startup this entire time. There's always been a problem. There's always been, well, it's not done being built. Well, it's part of it's done being built, but they want to buy the other part that's not done. Or what if there's bugs and they don't want to give me enough money to fix those bugs? They just want to give me enough money to put their toe in the water. So I need to go back to investors. It's a whole different ballgame that I'm not used to. But I have an overabundance of confidence that I can sell when it's ready, if that makes sense. And so I'm sitting on it's not ready yet. I know a lot of founders get stuck there, and I don't know if I'm delusional or not. It's hard to know.
Some of that distinction might be knowing, or maybe you can characterize it since, like I said, you're bursting at the seams with courage, bravery, and optimism. What would you like say is the difference between maybe a rough patch and a dead end? We're talking economy, some different periods. Like if you're in real estate in the end of 2007, early
Oh,
2008,
that's a
the
good metaphor. I love that.
worst. That's the worst time to be in it. But
Mhm.
if you waited until, I don't know, 2021, when some bond rates and different things happened, 2021 was an amazing year to buy a car. But now it's terrible, awful. Or do you move towards the dead end part of that? You're like, well, it's not working because it's not meant to work. How do you envision or characterize that?
For me, the difference is how much capacity, resource-wise, you have to wait out the market. That's it. Period. That's it. And within yourself. Do you have the money? Do you have the time? Do you have the energy? Do you have the life left to live? I turn 40 in a few months, so I'm about to start feeling like I don't have a lot of time left to just wait around for shit to come together or whatever. But I did decide to wait out the market with my startup when investors were bringing really bad term sheets to not just me, but everybody 2 years ago. I stepped back from all of it and I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go manage some Airbnbs. If I have to, I will put my house on the market, which I don't recommend for founders to do ever if it's just to run their business. But I was already, for personal reasons, thinking about doing that. So it was kind of like in the back of my mind, if I have to, I'll put my house on the market before I take a bad term sheet. I'll keep working on the business. In fact, you know what? I'm going to go back and do a boot camp to brush up on my enterprise level coding and go from hobbyist to I can actually get in the code with my developers. So I did that. I would rather do that than go with bad terms that are going to sit on my term sheet for the rest of the life of the business. So in that way, I rode out a bad situation. And now I've got investors actually coming to me unprompted saying that they've got checks to write, supposedly. We'll see. I don't trust anything anymore.
Don't
But
trust
like
it until you see the confirmation.
it could have, yeah,
Yep.
but it could have been a dead end if I had decided it was a dead end because I was looking at, you know what, my kids really need me to be able to pay for private school, to be able to pay for whatever we're doing without having to worry so much about money and work so many hours. My time with them is limited and precious, and it's time to shut this down. I'm not going to spend 2 years grinding and hustling and cleaning Airbnbs and going back to coding boot camp and telling them we can't afford things because I'm not even working. I'm in a boot camp. It was my choice to do those things instead. And in my mind, I'm teaching my kids the value of hard work, and they're watching me work my ass off. And they're teenagers, so they're like, you work harder than anyone I've ever seen. And I'm like, learn how to do it. And also, no one should ever work this hard. It's unhealthy. Go to therapy. We'll find a balance eventually. But for me, it wasn't a dead end only because I found a way to tread water. I think one more bad day, one more dentist visit, one more trip to the vet or something could have been a turning point where I just gave it all up and had to go get a job, go back to tech, go back for working for someone else. Thankfully, I just have not had to do that. That things came together over the last few months and kind of like back in the game again. And I think that investors, they play at this higher level than we may ever see or know. That is more like a 20-year holdout, right? Like with real estate and that kind of thing, stocks and bonds and stuff. What do you guys think? Is it about your internal switch, or is it actually like, no, any sane person would have called it 2 years ago?
I think the takeaway here that people need to hear is every single business goes through this. And the ones that are still here are the ones that went through the rough patches and didn't call it quits. So you're not going to escape unscathed. You're not. And I think we need to highlight that. This is just part of the game. It's going to suck sometimes. That's why the biggest predictor of success for a lot of things is grit. Can you keep with it? Can you be persistent? Can you be tenacious? So everybody's going to go through it. And then I think the way that you determine if it's a dead end, it's so personal. It's so individual. I think trusting your gut is a big thing that's not talked about enough. Having people that you can also talk to outside of you, but within the same industry. I think that's also important to be like, hey, here's where I'm at right now. Because you can get some empathy from people that understand what you're dealing with, but they can also give you tips or pointers or be like, man, that's unsustainable, or you should try this or whatever. So I think having support, having a deep-seated knowledge of, back to the values thing, you always talk about what your values are and what you're willing to put up with for certain seasons, and knowing that maybe this is a season. What is it going to take me to get through this? There's just no one size fits all answer for that, unfortunately, other than the fact that everybody's going to go through it.
That's so true.
I think the community piece is a big one that needs to be highlighted here too. I'm in a group the other day where someone was talking about, they said, I know you're not supposed to talk badly about employees, but it's hard. And a bunch of us were like, no. The rule is you don't talk about that within your org, but you need to have support. The sentiment there was, this is hard. I am frustrated. I'm having to deal with these things. I feel like I'm not supposed to talk about it, but I feel like I need to. And it's like, no, you need to talk about it, but you need to be selective about
completely.
who you talk to those
Oh my
things
gosh,
about.
yeah. Don't be that boss that's like
find people-
unloading in the meetings. I hated that.
Yeah,
That's
that
so bad.
intern is hearing you know what I mean? Yes, or that. Like, you have a separate peer group outside of whatever, not even involved in your business, ideally. I have a monthly agency meetup thing that I do every month. It's just a bunch of people running businesses similar to mine, and we just hop on and we chat about whatever. And it's great, because you'll be like, hey, I'm dealing with this problem. What do you guys think? So that is super, super important.
Yes.
Highlight, you're going to run into rough patches. You're going to have to make these decisions, and you need to have people around you that are in your space. Again, not random people, not your grandma. It has to be someone in the space.
Grandma.
It has to be someone that knows your industry and at the same level of what you're doing too, that kind of stuff. So find those people and then just play it by ear. That's all of us are doing. Is playing it by ear anyway.
I wanted to make sure before we move on to say opportunity cost is a factor that I forgot to touch on. It's not just can you hang in there. I think if you took an analysis, this is what I've been doing for the last 2 years as I'm trying to write out a bad economy that has affected every agency owner I know. But I decided to hang in there because of what Sarah said. Grit is the biggest indicator of success. Recessions make millionaires or billionaires, right? When a recession hits, everyone who was unprepared or just didn't have the grit to stick it out goes away, and all of a sudden the market starts to open up. And that's what's happening for me. I mean, people are coming to me, my competitors maybe, that would have scooped them up, they're gone now. And I watched several agencies that I have worked at even shut down over the last couple of years. But I would also do this analysis. What am I giving up? Like Sarah said at the beginning, everything you say yes to means you're saying no to something else. And I'm saying no every day to another good idea that maybe could be already funded. I'm saying no every day to just starting all over with some scrappy new thing that I'm extremely energized about. And that energy really makes a difference in whether or not I get up and go sell it, or I lay in bed obsessing about whether or not I'm doing the right thing, right? It's just a waste. So that opportunity cost is the other factor. Let's say you've got $100,000 to spend, maybe literally or figuratively, in terms of your energy and time. Do you spend it on the business that's struggling and you just hope it'll pull through? And when it does pull through, now you're back to making maybe $500,000 a year, $1 million a year. Or do you take that and you just invest it in a totally different concept that's more primed for today's market, and you go hit that 10 million, 50 million a year kind of level that you've been wanting to hit. So yeah, I wouldn't say go try to be a long-term investor with smaller amount of assets. If you only have a little bit, you have to be really scrappy and intuitive and know when to pivot.
One of the biggest points for me is quitting harder than starting. I talked about when the excitement piece waned off for me, but another factor, and as I was thinking just as an episode title, something like Living on Hope and a Prayer, is that I realized that opportunity within what I was trying to do had ceased. And I was literally just sitting on a cliff, just kind of waiting for the next thing to happen. I was like, oh, okay, if this
Mm,
grant lands, I can get back in the game. Or if this
mm,
person takes my call, or if I meet this guy who's a scientist here, they'll validate my idea. And I kept waiting on these other things that were very external. So it's like I had no internal control over what I was doing. The last grant I submitted, April 21st. I moved land and water or whatever to get everything in for that particular grant. It's usually a 4-month cycle before they let you know if you're getting the funding or not. It was for $250,000. So after 2 months, I'm like, okay, just 2 more months and I'll see if I get this.
mm.
They reopened the cycle, the applications for 2 weeks. So then that just gave me a big light bulb in my head. The only reason they would reopen it after 2 months is they were unsatisfied with what they had. I was just like, okay, Zach, what are you going to do? Are you going to sit around waiting for them to get everything together? Because I went back to them. I was like, okay, you reopened it. How far out am I going to have to wait now? They were like, oh, we'll let everybody know probably early October. And I was like, I'm not going to sit around for 3 months waiting on one grant when this is the only contingency on the business. So that was probably the final straw. I was like, all right, go ahead and draw this paperwork up, get Delaware on the phone, get Missouri, get them on the phone, do the foreign corporation withdrawal, whatever it's
Mm,
called,
mm.
and do all the paperwork. So I think that's my little piece is if that ever came up is like, when did you decide? When I realized I was waiting on one thing and that one thing was unsustainable for the life of the business.
I think the answer we should have given to between the rough patch and the dead end is if your clients dry up. If the opportunity is
Yeah.
gone, I went straight to the hard answer. But if you're in, I don't know, writing right now, don't become a writer right now, people. Okay? Copywriters are not having
Oh,
a
I
good
would
time.
disagree.
All right? You do not want to become a
Well,
copywriter
uh,
in the age.
maybe
All
not
right.
for
Well, I
money.
mean, I
I
I
don't know
think it's
about
the cream's gonna rise to the top
exactly.
kind of
Yeah.
thing. You're gonna have to become a strategist. There are ways to make it in that, but I'm just saying if you're a brand new
Oh, yeah.
junior, whatever,
If you sound like a
now is not a good time. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So there's certain things where I would say that if it's a rough patch and the rough patch is your entire industry just dried up overnight, like I don't know, you made floppy
Oh my
disks
God, I am
in
just the
or
eternal freaking optimist in
film.
this
You know, you were a film company. Like,
group.
look,
I'm like, that's the best time. If your whole
not for
industry, if your
Kodak.
whole industry dries up, Kodak's still around though, right? What'd they do differently?
Maybe it's the other one.
I
There
don't
was a
think they
company that
are. I
really
Oh,
think
are they
botched.
not?
Wait,
Oh
was it
man.
Kodak? One of them invented the digital camera, and they refused to be
it's
first to market
Kodak.
because they would eat their own business. Is
Yeah.
it Kodak? I thought it was Kodak. That's
Smaller.
an
It's still
example, right? It's
around,
like
but it's much
you're just
smaller. They had to pivot. Yeah.
yes, just don't get into that now,
Mm.
right? Or even the way that Google was slow to get to AI, even though they had most of the
Mhm.
research, just because they were afraid they were going to eat their own ad business. You know what I mean? So
Mm.
anyway, that's kind of an aside, but I'm just saying that we should
Crazy.
also clarify if your entire industry is going away or drying up or something because things are changing. That should also be a sign that maybe it's time to move on. And I think we also need to address the fact that it may not be a dead end; it may be a pivot.
Yes.
Because pivots are also a very normal part of business. So I have pivoted 2 times, I guess. Yeah. I started out as a brand agency. And then I guess I pivoted more into like a very niche way of doing that. And then I pivoted into websites and then I nixed everything else. So there's some different ways I could divide that. But either way, it took me time to get to where I am now because of making pivots. So
I think I did 6.
also a factor.
6 pivots. If I look
Dang, yeah.
at
Oh.
every single one, so military transition, clearance management, personnel analytics, human resources analytics, data management. Gosh. And there's probably 2, 3 more even in there. Yeah, so probably 6 in all. And I think I've alluded to this or even told myself this. If you pivot enough, you just turn a 360. and it's just let it go. You're spinning.
That's a good point. If you pivot so many times, you make a complete circle, maybe it's time to shut it down. That's
That's
Hang it up.
honestly, yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Also, it's an experiment. That's the other thing. We've talked about the overnight success before too, and how there is no overnight success. You go through these different phases and testing and experimenting and trying things. And eventually, if you keep with it and you go through the rough patches and you don't treat them as dead ends, eventually you'll hit on something that works. It's a numbers game. Investors invest in a million different things, and then they're like, "Oh man, how did you know to invest in, Facebook ahead of time or whatever?" Right? It's like because they invested in a million different things, and that's just the one
Yeah.
that did well.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting back to, is quitting harder than starting? I think I'm almost of the mind to
Yes.
say yes, and I
Totally.
think
Yeah.
most
Yes.
starting something is there's not no risk. But it just seems to be a lighter burden. If you want to test out, I don't know, ice cream and your Betty Ray's ice cream, and you just make some funky, cool, different ice cream, that's relatively easy to do. But if say you got a prime spot and you're selling ice cream and the area is developing around you and things just aren't working, people aren't interested in it,
If you're Betty
you're
Ray's. Sorry, that was a low blow. They're
Yeah,
fine.
it's a great place.
They're expanding.
Well, they changed
Constantly.
leadership in a very tumultuous way a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Well, that
in
was
the city
needed, though.
key.
That was
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
They're all good now. Chateau
Mhm.
owns them now.
Wait,
They have the
they
distribution
do?
channels.
I didn't know that. The employees bought
Yeah.
the company out at first.
Yeah, a really young employee bought the company, and then he sold it a couple years later to Chateau, which I
What
think
a
is a brilliant move
badass.
because they already know how to do all of
Yeah.
this. That's why they keep opening new locations now because they know how to scale this because
Yeah.
they've done that. Total aside, but if you're in Kansas City, go check out Betty Ray's.
Yeah,
They
they're
are
amazing.
fantastic.
Sorry,
Well, I was that
Zach. Please
and
continue.
the Chateau, their plant, you can go to it and go through it, and they'll give you nearly a gallon of their 30 flavors. They have like 30 flavors of milk up there.
Right, but you can get like cotton candy milk. Like for a company that makes something like cotton candy milk to buy an ice
Mhm.
cream company that makes like Joe's Kansas City barbecue flavored ice cream. I mean, that's a
It
match
is.
made in
That's
heaven. Come
amazing.
on.
It's a great.
It was a good move.
So quitting and starting. So yeah, if you're deep in the trenches and you have this idea, you almost can be naive to the idea that it's just not working because you're so far into it that you keep hoping and praying for the next thing. I don't even think that's worth a question at this point now. Is like, is quitting
Yeah.
harder than starting? Then the answer is
Yeah.
unanimously yes.
I think even socially, even in this group, you think about it, Zach, you've talked to Sarah and I about shutting down the company before you did. And the instinctive response anybody that is your friend that's watched you go through this is going to have is no, don't shut it down. But if you're like, but I got this idea, you guys got to hear this idea, we're going to be like, yeah, that's a great idea. Like, that's just how people are.
That's true.
I can't think of a single person in my life, especially the people who care about me, that would hear me say, I'm just going to throw in the towel. I'm done. And for them to be like, yeah, you should. So
Hang that up.
yeah, we already knew you were done. How did you just figure out you were done? Like, don't be friends with that person if people talk to you like that. So if that's the experience we're all having always as founders, and we are people who test the market and we say, well, what do you think about this before we go do a new thing? Because good founders do that. No one is ever going to support you shutting down your business. You have to have a really good story. And Zach, you've got a great story. You're not telling your whole story here, but you've got a lot of reasons why it's time to shut it down. And I think it's brilliant. It's perfect. But,
Yeah.
people won't always know the whole story and they won't back you up. They want to hear your next big idea. They want to see you succeed. It's hard to stop.
I think external from your friend group and your peer and your support group, I would say some of those conversations can be, and they're probably not for everyone, but just incredibly awkward, especially if there's ever money involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just such a tough conversation. Or if somebody gave you money, whether it be grant or equity investment, you kind of have to have that conversation with them. That's a tough thing to do, especially if you're pre-seed or whatever family and friends type round of invest. Somebody is like, oh, I have an idea. I need $5,000 or whatever. So you have to be able to go back. That person put faith in you. And I think if you're a person of relative ethical standing and morality, that sucks. There's like top 3 crappy feelings. Letting people down. I tried to do it. They believed in me. They were along for the journey and it didn't work. That's like, shoot. I already feel bad about myself, but then you feel this feeling of, shoot, I let everybody down.
I let
Womp
my dad
womp.
down. I mean, my investor. Shit.
I'm
Yeah.
not going to come to the Christmas party anymore. That sort of thing happens.
Thanksgiving is ruined.
So yeah, I think
Yeah.
having those conversations, it's surreal. It's almost like
Yeah.
you have to detach yourself from it almost.
I've watched people in Pipeline, the entrepreneurial group that Zach and I met in, go through a lot of this over the last couple of years, because it has been a hard couple of years. That's not bullshit. You know, I've seen it with every industry, and a lot of people have lost their startups and had to go get jobs. And there's a lot of awkwardness, because whenever anyone is like, well, I think I'm going to shut down, even all the seasoned entrepreneurs are often like, but why? Keep going. You can do it. I'm thinking of one in particular who just exited. She called me when she was about to lay everyone off. She was specifically asking me if I could take some people on and hire them for my company, because she didn't know where to send them. She was out of funding. She probably had another month or two of runway left just for herself to keep trying to sell before she shut it all down. And we were just strategizing together. And we didn't really stay in touch. Next time I heard from her, she had a different business idea she was exploring. But I guess she kept the business alive. She somehow got it back up off the ground, and she recently sold it. So, like, there are those stories too, and we never know how it's going to go, right? So no one ever wants to say, oh, you should shut it down. But we've watched bigger players in the ecosystem consciously decide to shut things down with confidence and give money back to investors and go on to their next big thing and make a lot of money very quickly. And I think that's the example that we should be looking to. And that those of us who are just a little bit more new to the ecosystem of taking money, taking investment, and knowing how to go back and say, you know what, I was wrong. There's a grace to that we need to learn how to have, that these more sophisticated founders in the city that we know, they've done this over and over again, they have it. They're like, yeah, failure is part of life. Knowing when to quit is a huge skill. And they're modeling that for us.
Yeah, because if you hang on to the wrong thing for too long, you're handicapping yourself for the future. If you need to shut the thing down and you keep it alive for the next year, you're now a year behind on the idea that you should have been working on after that. So you're just prolonging the death. There's a really good quote or advice around, I think it's around firing employees, actually. This may be from the book Traction, where he calls it 24 hours of pain. I really hope I'm remembering the right guy. It's from a book I read at some point. But the idea of needing to fire someone, and if you're agonizing over this decision, you're just prolonging the inevitable. If you know that this person is not a good fit for your org, or it's the last mistake, whatever, right? You just need to deal with 24 hours of pain to be like, we need to part ways, do what you need to do, wrap things up and move on. And it's over quickly, right? Versus dealing with that employee screwing up accounts or making clients unhappy or whatever for 2 weeks. So I think that's the same idea should be applied to business.
I think
as well.
I found the quote. You can suffer for 24 hours making the decision or suffer for 24 months avoiding it. That's intense.
Yes.
That's
Yep.
good.
That's a good one.
And
I did that with my startup too for, I don't know, several months. It was a slow realization that things were not working. And so it's hard to know at what point, if I had had this attitude of just shutting it down, would I have figured it out more quickly? I don't know. I'm not sure that I could have made it any quicker, to be honest, but it would have been nice in retrospect. In retrospect, I would have never done that business in the first place, though. So,
well, everything's clear in retrospect.
The ashes and the rubble, everything makes sense.
Yep.
As I think about my own journey, or even just somebody who's going through this sort of thing, I imagine there's a really good way to go about shutting everything down, having those conversations. Hey, it's not working out. This is why. Because in the smallest sense, you don't have to necessarily pay everything forward, but you get the opportunity. If you can speak at the 1 Million Cups or talk to someone else, you can help them avoid a lot of the pitfalls that you drug around, like that movie Troy, where they drug the guy around in the chariot for like 4 days, some Greek myth or something.
Jeez.
Might be Hector or Achilles.
Just thought of a really morbid example. I read a book the other day about this cult leader woman who was basically like, they thought she wasn't going to die, and her followers like just mummified her basically because she died, obviously. Don't mummify the corpse of your startup.
Yeah.
Holy,
Leave it
that
Just
is
let it go.
morbid. But that's actually really good.
Yeah, it was a wild
That is
story.
like
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah,
graphic thought to, yeah.
she was on
Yeah.
life support and should have been taken to a hospital and instead died, and they just kept her body there. Yeah, there's definitely some people doing that with their businesses, I
Some
think.
people who
Gee.
just refuse to let everything go.
I feel personally attacked by that
Yeah.
somehow. Got all my like mummified shrines. Because I was saying before we started this, I've never really shut down any business. I don't go through the formal process of doing that. And there's been times where I've spun a business back up, like my little lifestyle businesses, on my little corpses.
It's
They're my pets.
Hector. Hector is
There's a great t-shirt idea in there somewhere.
yeah. So the myth is in Homer's Iliad, Achilles kills Hector and he drags him around for 3 days.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But
Mm.
in any
Of
sense,
course.
I need to reread that. So
Much more cultured version of my
Your
yeah,
cult story.
I do love the Odyssey, though. It's a great one, yeah.
making sure that you close everything out in the right way because you can get caught up. Just make sure
Ah.
you go through the proper channels. You have to shut down at the federal level, the state level, the city level, and make sure you do final closeout. If you're a C corp, there's something called an 1120. You have to do a final 1120 or the IRS is going to expect you to keep doing it over and over. So you have to have all this in writing because if you're just like, I'm just not going to identify as the founder of this business anymore, I'll see what happens. You're going to get people asking about you or asking for things and coming to you. It could get really messy. So I would say definitely have those conversations, investors, or if there's anybody you need to talk to, make sure you have closeout. The same gusto you had to start your business, have the same thing when you're filing, getting your EIN, making sure you were set up in the right incorporation. Have that same intensity and energy, shutting it down. Otherwise, it could haunt you the rest of your life.
Hey, hang on. I'm going to
And then
qualify
burn
that.
some sage or something.
Because you're about to scare a lot of people, including me. So, because yeah, I have not shut down some old LLCs from back in the day. And LLCs, if it's a single member default sole proprietorship, you didn't go turn it into an S corp, which you wouldn't have done unless you were making at least 80 to 100,000 a year. If you didn't turn it into a C corp, which would have been insane if you had a little mom and pop, like you're doing baked goods or something. So for those of you listening who are having a heart attack right now, you don't have to file an 1120 if that's all you had. If you're at the level where you've gone a lot further than that, yeah, you got a lot of shit to do. Like if you've made around 100,000 a year, yeah, you got a lot to untangle. But for those of you who are listening to this, wondering if you should start a business, and now you're like, oh, fuck that, because if it dies, the IRS is gonna come after me. Nah. But if you're successful, yeah, you've got some homework to do, and Zach is very knowledgeable about that. I not so much. I am very the accountants can figure it out. It'll be fine. But yeah, just it'll be fine. It'll be fine either way. Just move on, learn to move on, and you won't be haunted. Hopefully.
Time for the next thing, because there will always be a next thing for most of us that are doing this and have this mental disorder.
Yeah, it's just one more story.
There's always a new idea.
I mean, think about if I had never shut down the yoga studio. That's crazy. There was bigger
Yeah.
and better things waiting for me. So you just have to have that mentality.
Yeah, there's some people who are very driven and motivated to achieve and do things, and sometimes that mentality can make anything you shut down seem like failure. And for the longest time, that's been the only way that I could characterize what I was going through. So as I would look at what I'm doing, how would I describe it? A smoldering failure, that just won't go out.
Jeez.
I just need somebody to put some water, extinguish this thing.
Oh, man.
But for the longest time, I think that's how I looked at it. But now I really looked at everything, pen to pad, and writing the actual agreements of what's happening, what's transpired, the ledger, I think helped me get to another thing. It just didn't freaking work. It didn't work. I thought something 4 years ago that was wrong. It's not going to be the first time I'm wrong today. Just keep on moving.
Yeah, I keep thinking about the fact that you decided to start something that needed government participation and grant funding to be successful. in the climate that we're in today that you couldn't have foreseen 4 years ago,
Yeah.
right? Like there was
Yeah.
no way. For some reason, I keep thinking about that next to, in my mind, Bottle Learning, which is a originally KC company that blew up about 4 or 5 years ago. So they blew up because they were an ed tech company in 2019, I think is when they got started. Really small, just as small as any of us. They just wanted to build something that helped kids learn, and then 2020 happened. And all of a sudden, ed tech was it. And if you were positioned already, that was game changing. You were on a rocket ship. And so, of course, they got funding. And now I follow them on social media. They moved to Oklahoma to take a grant and have stayed there. But they seem to be wildly successful, not just financially, but socially, personally. Like they achieve their goals. They've got teachers posting on Twitter all the time about, oh my God, my kids love this platform so much they're learning during the summer on their own with it. We love Bottle Learning. They're always tagging them. It's really cool to see how that's turned out. And it wasn't because of so much what they could control, but the fact that they were just positioned at a point where something was about to have an inflection that no one could have foreseen. And similarly, Zach, like you positioned yourself and it could have gone either way. And it went a way that maybe wasn't what you wanted, but now you're open to go position yourself for something else that maybe would take off more easily.
That's the role of luck in a lot of this. A lot of people are just in the right place at the right time. And there's stuff you can pay attention to some extent, but at the end of the day, you don't have control over that. You really don't.
Yeah, having the mental clarity to remember that quitting isn't necessarily giving up. As Sarah said at the top, is it's making space or making room for some other things. It's been a journey. I need to write out and finish the postmortem, and I'm gonna do a press junket. Junket. It's a junket? I don't know what it is.
Junket. I think it's
Press release?
Junket. That's such a weird word.
That's an odd word.
I shouldn't have went for it. A press tour. There we go. A press tour. Maybe I'll talk about maybe some UMKC entrepreneurship classes about some things that I would watch out for. So
spin it into something positive.
Help the kids. It's all about the kids. If this episode resonates because you're holding on to an idea that you've been baking in your kitchen and you just keep saying one more loaf, we'll do it. One more loaf and then Wonder Bread's going to license out my baked goods. Maybe do some reflection. That might be a good idea.
Always.
Bury your corpse.
I was going to say you could have a funeral.
Yeah. Oh, man.
You could have a funeral for the business. Burn the paperwork and then just be like, I feel like
burning the paperwork seems like it would be illegal.
Okay. Yeah.
I really am curious now, though, to know like what exists for us as an initiation or like a rite or ceremony that a business owner could go through to really grieve and let go of an idea that they incubated for years. We don't have that. We make it really hard on ourselves. So yeah, Zach, I'll show up to your business funeral if you have one. You really should, though, like celebrate your bravery and willingness to move on.
People are doing that with divorce parties now. Instead of it being the somber thing, they will literally throw a party. I read about one woman who burned her wedding dress.
Yeah.
I read of a couple that had a final meeting at the coffee shop they met. It's important to mark things, and marking a turning point like that, even if it's sad, in a positive way so that you feel free to move forward is important. So yeah, maybe we should have that for business.
Totally.
I'll see if I can get a nice venue for the funeral. But on another note, if everyone's enjoyed the episode, like, subscribe, comment, reach out to us directly. We tackle the stuff that nobody wants to admit that they're going through. Remember, everyone, we all have problems, and sometimes they have to end.
Amen.
All right.